All right, looks like people are coming into the webinar. So I'll just begin with some brief, just introduction to what we're doing tonight. So peace, assalamu alaikum, greetings to everyone who is joining us tonight for this letter writing to free Imam Jamil Al-Amin. This event is something that we've put together, inspired by the project that is currently going on, Umi's Archive. Before I get into what Umi's Archive is, I want to sort of begin in the name of Allah, for love of Muhammad, to honor the ancestors and in celebration of our people. I also begin as a descendant of stolen people on stolen land, and acknowledgement that the land of which we gather is the unceded and ancestral territory of the native peoples of Turtle Island, and I also acknowledge the histories of imperialism, colonialism, and resistance that brought us here today, that every day is Ashura and every land is Karbala. My name is Saad. I'm Dr. Saad Abdul-Khabeer. I am the curator of Umi's Archive. Umi's Archive is a reclaimed space where we remember and dream. Umi was my mother, Amina Matul-Haq, who was born Audrey Weeks in Harlem, New York in 1950. And she passed away as Amina Matul-Haq in Queens, New York in 2017. She was an everyday person who lived an extraordinary life. And the goal of Umi's Archive is to sort of use her life and her archive and her family archive to encourage and inspire conversation about the things we don't know, or we don't need to know more about, right, in terms of our history, particularly as Black people, and also to dream and imagine what a future can be for ourselves and our community. Umi's Archive has had there are 6 exhibitions. We're in number 5 right now. Number 5 is called Black Power and Its Legacies. Each exhibition, and so that's a picture from number 5. That's Umi in 1969 when she was a student at Ohio State University. Each exhibit is tied to something significant culturally in Black life or Muslim life. And so this 5th exhibit, Black Power and Its Legacies, is tied to Black August, right? It's inspired by the message and the principles of Black August: study, fight, fast, train. And, one of the things I discovered when I was doing the research on my mother's life, it was the ways in which the prison was actually kind of significant in her life in many different ways that I didn't even know. For example, she was a part of prison solidarity work as a college student. She performed for people who were incarcerated in Ohio, and she also advocated for different people as well. And she took her Shahada actually in a prison, and she was not an inmate. She was visiting political prisoners at Greenhaven Correctional Facility in Stormfield, New York. And so the prison, showed up a lot in her life in ways that I hadn't even realized. And so then I wanted to uplift that, right? Because I think of the ways in which the prison and people who are incarcerated just really get forgotten and erased, right, in our everyday society. It reminded me of, I once saw Michelle Alexander, who wrote The New Jim Crow, give a talk, and she was comparing something to a scene in the book 12 Years a Slave, and there's a scene in that book, because I was reading that, and there's a scene where an enslaved African American is being whipped, right, and they're hung kind of like just out there, and life goes on, right? Like this happens and people just kind of pass by. And she compared the prison to that. Like there are all these injustices that are happening all the time, every day around us, and life just goes on. And I know I've been guilty of being forgetful. And so I wanted to use this opportunity with Umi's Archive to sort of remember for myself and give us all opportunities to remember and then to act, right? Because we still have people, right, and particularly the political prisoners of that era who are being held, who are older, right, who should be released and are not being released. And so there's a lot of work to be done to advocate for their freedom, hence the phrase free them all. So that's kind of the background of how we got here today. And I don't want to take too much more time because it's not about me, but really it's about both the guests we have today, A'isha Mohammad and Kairi Al-Amin, to share the work they're doing. So A'isha is the co-chair of the Oakland chapter of the National Jericho Movement. And Brother Kairi is the lawyer and son of Imam Jamil Al-Amin, for whom we're going to take action tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to A'isha to kind of share about yourself and the work of Jericho and the importance of political prisoners in letter writing.
Thank you very much, Sister Shukran. I just want to say thank you for having me. I'm very honored to be here. And the work that we're all doing is like really important. I'll just briefly touch a little bit upon Jericho, National Jericho as a movement. Jericho started with a defined goal of gaining recognition for the fact that there are political prisoners and prisoners of war in the United States. And this is a fact that the United States has continued, decade upon decade to deny. So we have currently about 37 political prisoners. We got 11 chapters across the United States, and that includes, along with various affiliates. And then that's individuals doing the work on the ground and supporting our political prisoners behind the bars. The movement grew out of a call for the National March on the White House, and that was in 1998 by former political prisoner Jalil Muntaqim, who is now home in Rochester. Alhamdulillah, we're very happy. So the call was made in October through the Provisional Government Republic of the New Africa, the New African Liberation Front. And then the organizers used this opportunity to jumpstart a movement to build a national support system for political prisoners in general. Jericho 98, as it was called back then, was a collective work of over 50 organizations, defense committees, groups. There were over a lot of students from various colleges and universities that participated and made chapters. The amnesty and recognition for US held political prisoners was one of the main focal points at that time. Now what we do is we have legal support, medical support, political prisoner writing events, political prisoner education, whatever each chapter wants to do in support of political prisoners. They're kind of free to be creative, but those are the foundations. And inshallah, we'll get our people home. So that's a little bit of the history of Jericho. One of the mottos is that they wanted to create a movement that no political prisoner was ever going to be on their own, left out, with no support. And inshallah, Jericho has accomplished that in 20 plus years, along with other organizations that focus on political prisoners. What I like to always tell people is, to ignore the pleas and the cries for help from our political prisoners is like akin to betrayal. These warriors, both men and women, freedom fighters, have put in so much and sacrificed most of their lives for the people, for the cause. And I feel personally, it's the least that we can do, is to write a letter of support or table or talk, do some political education, talk to people about what's going on, what's happening to them. A lot of them come from different movements, but a lot of them came from the Black Panther Party movement and the BLA. And we just really need to get them out. So with that said, there's work to be done. And if anybody, wants to help out, get involved, they're more than welcomed. We always need help. We're working with local defense committees, and we could use some help with that. Also building the amnesty campaigns, doing political education, talking to people, tabling, volunteering with us, donating. And we have a special need for like youth organizers. So if anybody's interested in the youth committees and working with youth on the issues of political prisoners, that's very much needed. Please feel free to visit the website, which is the JerichoMovement.com. And there's all the information on there that you could want. You could also contact me at oakland.jericho@gmail.com. And I will be most happy to get back with you, inshallah. The last little portion of Jericho is we're having the Spirit of Mandela Tribunal in October, and that's October 22nd to 25th. And we've been working on this for a couple of years, and it is one of the inspiring ideas of Jalil Muntaqim, about 2017, 2018, possibly, I think. Yeah, we start talking about this, and there's a lot of other organizations that have stepped up that we're collaborating with. So the IT tribunal, it's the 22nd to the 25th. It'll be in New York City. We're going to be charging human and civil rights violations for racist police killings of Black, Brown, and Indigenous people, hyper incarcerations of Black, Brown, and Indigenous people, which will include the continued practice of illegally sanctioned slavery, political incarceration of civil rights, national liberation era revolutionaries and activists, as well as present-day activists, environmental racism and its impact on Black, Brown, and Indigenous people, public health racism and disparities and its traumatic impact on Black, Brown, and Indigenous people, and the genocide of Black, Brown, and Indigenous peoples based on the above historic systematic charges. And I believe this is like the 4th or 5th time that the US has been charged at this length anyhow with genocide. So we hope to have several outcomes of this, which would be to codify and publish the contents and the results of the tribunal, which would be offered in high schools and university curriculums, as well as provide organized, accurate information for reparation initiatives and community and human rights work, to strengthen the demand to free all political prisoners and establish a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to lead to their freedom, provide the foundation for civil action in federal and state courts across the United States, present a stronger case building upon the previous respected human rights initiatives on the international stage, establish a healthy and viable massive national network of community organizers, activists, clergy, academics, and lawyers concerned with challenging human rights abuses on all levels, and to establish the foundation to build a People's Senate representative of all 50 states, indigenous tribes, and major religions. And anybody interested in that can contact the Spirit of Mandela1@gmail.com to put on the listserv, and the website is spiritofmandela.org. And I will be putting this in the chat. So are there any questions about this at this point?
I think, well, actually, I do have one question
Yes.
for you. I wondered if you could say, like, because I feel like for there are people for whom the notion of a political prisoner is a foreign concept when you're talking about the United States, right? I think, they might think of, someplace outside the US where there's a war, like a sort of like say for example, right now in Afghanistan, right? If someone was to be taken by the Taliban, that kind of thing, or in Vietnam, right? Prisoners of war.
Right.
So could you say maybe a bit more about what that title means and why it's appropriate, for folks who are incarcerated domestically?
Yeah, basically there is a war going on. There's a war of racism and oppression and police brutality and killing and lynching and environmental and medical racism. So that is a war in itself. When people rise up to either protect their communities or to take a stand against this type of inhumane treatment, which is in violation of, obviously, of human rights, and then they are incarcerated for it, that makes them a political prisoner. Additionally, a lot of our people were set up by COINTELPRO, which is another topic in another session, which would take a long time to discuss. But there is information out there. The Freedom Archives is a good place to go for DVDs and films and stuff on COINTELPRO, like COINTELPRO 101, if anybody's interested. But the COINTELPRO was a big part of a lot of our people being incarcerated at a very young age. Like a lot of our people went in when they were 18, 19 years old, and now they're like in their 60s and 70s. And what makes them a political prisoner is just standing up for their basic human rights, protecting themselves and their communities, and trying to make this united I'll just say this United States, a more just place. You know, if you go against what their missive is and what they have planned, and especially like when you look at like Fred Hampton, Chairman Fred Hampton with the Rainbow Coalition, I mean, that the whole thing with the Black Panther Party and people coming together in unity was like a humongous threat to the government. And they couldn't have that, because once people come together in unity, then that's more power. But speaking, you know, directly with about our political prisoners, that's what makes them political prisoners. They were fighting a war waged against them in self-defense.
Thank you for clarifying that. I really appreciate it. And I think that's a great way to segue to Brother Kairi, because, you know, Imam Jamil Al-Amin, you know, formerly known as H. Rap Brown, you know, is of that generation, right? And was persecuted then and now. And so I think it would be great for you to kind of share with the audience more about who he is, what's going on, and what we should be doing.
No, absolutely. First and foremost, of course, assalamu alaikum. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to your audience and your willingness to help. Anytime I can find assistance at this critical juncture, it's a blessing. So we're appreciative, and we're super appreciative of the Jericho Movement, because they've been involved since essentially day one, lending a hand. The local Jericho Movement in that organization in Atlanta has been extremely instrumental whenever we do anything on the ground. And so it's much appreciated, and it's nice to see a representative here as well. As for who Imam Jamil is, we'd be here all night. So I'm gonna do my best to kind of squish it up a little bit. But you know, as you said, he's formerly H. Rap Brown, and we can't talk about who he is now without talking about who he was then. And you know, he was the chairman of SNCC is kind of his most official title, but bigger than that, he was, you know, he was just a Black freedom fighter and humanitarian. Even at that point in time, even though the humans he was most concerned with were those who were the same color as him, because those were the people who needed the help. He later took his Shahada in prison, and at that point, becoming Muslim gave him kind of the worldview of how to use the abilities he had kind of honed in the civil rights movement to help everyone. And so he became kind of that face on the front lines for anybody and everybody who was oppressed, whether here in the United States or, you know, over in Bosnia or wherever he had to be, he was there. And it garnered him the kind of recognition where he was getting invites to Hajj by the royal family in Saudi Arabia. And those were the kind of things that made him even more dangerous when you talk about how the federal government viewed him. He was already public enemy number 1, 2, or 3, depending on who you ask, when he was H. Rap Brown. And now to have this world-reaching ability and world-changing ability just via your speech and your presence, it was kind of unacceptable. And so when people ask why didn't why would they still be holding on to this vendetta? Well, it's because the Imam evolved into something more dangerous than he was before. You know, had he become Muslim and rode off into the sunset and they never heard from him again, then they probably would have dropped the ball. Like, all right, we good. We don't have to worry about that, because, you know, we've seen some of our freedom fighters have the opportunity to just say, hey, look, I've worked all I could work. I'm done. I ain't doing nothing else. And they're good. But the Imam, that wasn't his calling. His calling was, now, okay, I'll fight for everyone. And so he was on everyone's radar, and the only people's radar he stopped being on were people who didn't know he became Muslim. And so that's funny, as we've been fighting, I talk to people about H. Rap Brown, and they're like, we just found out he was still alive, because when he became Muslim, they just lost track of him, but the government didn't. The government said, no, we know exactly who you are. And so we've been fighting for his freedom for the last 21 years, because as they said, after his incarceration, after all these years, we finally got him. And that kind of brings me to where we are now. You know, we're very excited because finally people are taking into consideration this confession of another man to this crime my father's been serving all this time for. They're taking into consideration the fact that there was no physical evidence linking my father to this crime. You know, they're taking into consideration that the FBI were the first people on the scene of the crime for, you know, this supposedly random shooting nobody knew about. They're taking into consideration all these very, very important things. The officers saying they wounded the person who, you know, shot them, and my father not being wounded, and the person who confessed having the wound in his shoulder. All these things are great. However, it's our job now to show the people who have the ability to make the decision to free the Imam that when they face the backlash that they're inevitably going to face if they decide to let him out, that the people have their back. It has to be worth it to them. And so that's the other side of political imprisonment. In order to free a political prisoner, the politicians have to feel like they're going to be safe. And so that's why we're doing the best we can to raise awareness. We just had a rally in Tucson, which went really well. We had some very influential people fly out to speak, and we had maybe 300-400 people show up, on the steps of the courthouse in Tucson. And it sounds, depending on where you're from, less or more impressive, but if you've ever been to Tucson on a Sunday, there's not 3 people in downtown Tucson. So for there to be 300 to 400, it was great. We were the #1 news story in Tucson for the week, actually. And it went a long way to get his eyesight fixed, which was we had a kind of a 3-step process that we were trying to take care of. He was allowed to go blind over the last 3 years by being denied cataract surgery. So they diagnosed him with cataracts 3 years ago when he could still see. They allowed him to go blind and continued to not give him his surgery. And so we had to sue them, and we had to be on the steps of the courthouse to get them to finally do that. But alhamdulillah, he has his eyesight back in both eyes. So that's mission #1. Our second step, and what we'll be writing this letter for today, is to get him moved back to Atlanta. The federal government keeps telling us that we don't have any control over letting him out. And that's true. It is a state situation. However, because they're housing him, they are in control of which federal institution they house him in. And there is one in Atlanta. And so even though they say, it may not be maximum secure, whatever, he's 77 years old, and he has an open case, an active case going on in Atlanta that he's not being allowed to participate in. And so when the feds ask us what we want, that's what we tell them. We want you to move him to Atlanta so he can be an active participant in this situation with the Conviction Integrity Unit, which is the unit that is currently investigating his case and has the ability to either give him a new trial or let him out. And so without his voice being a part of that investigation, the investigation can't really be complete. And so in this letter writing campaign, which is very simple, I'm actually do you want me to share my screen now, or do we do that at the end?
At the end, we'll do
it at the end. So at the end, we'll go through exactly how easy Brother Wasik, who is running the organization Students for Imam Jamil, has made this letter writing campaign. It's a copy and paste kind of situation. And the reason we did it this way, as opposed to like a button that you click and it auto populates and sends, is because businesses and government agencies, et cetera, they have great spam filters. And so if it's coming from an automated sender, they won't even get it. And so it won't matter. So we need it to be copy and pasted into your email and you sending it out. That way it looks like an actual email. They can't block those because they have to receive them from constituents and all that stuff. So that's why we made it a little bit more difficult, but I promise it takes 45 seconds. And I think that is, and so as far as what else we can do to get involved, it's really just a matter of getting the word out. We're trying to get the word out and spread it and make it kind of we need this to be a pop culture thing, because crazy as it seems, nowadays pop culture moves these folks. And so if we can make Imam Jamil as popular as Meek Mill, then we can get the same kind of results that we got for that person. So that's the goal right now. And as far as the letter is concerned, it's actually, when I click the link, you'll see it. It's actually written out. So it's on. You'll see. I'll show you.
So I was I want to open up, see if we have questions from the audience, but before we'll let people give time to do that. But I also wanted to ask you a question too, and because I think about this and what you were saying, because I remember years ago there was like this hip hop concert for Imam Jamil. Like I think most Def and Top probably were part of it, some years ago. And I'm wondering, like, what do you see as kind of the challenges around raising awareness, right? Like in terms of, like, what are the things that kind of, get in the way? Because it seems like this would be a no-brainer for a lot of people, right? That kind of thing. But
for us, for sure, but for some people, not so much. One of the issues that we're overcoming these hurdles too, so it's a blessing. But one of the first issues we had to deal with was that people felt like he was guilty. I ran into people who I was raised with, like young folks, and they tell me like, "Hey, we were raised that we love Imam Jamil, but he did it." And I was like, well, if that's what's going around, it's going to be difficult. So we had to first get to the point where people at least had that reasonable doubt. And now I feel like we're at the point where people just are like, all right, he doesn't even look like he could have possibly done this. And that's where we needed them. So that's great. The second part is influential people are usually on someone's payroll, or there's someone above them who can take what they have. And that level of comfort that a lot of these artists and celebrities have is scary to lose. And so until they see that it's something pop culture will get behind, they won't get behind it at the risk of jeopardizing their livelihood. And I don't blame them for that. That's understandable. But again, we're starting to get that kind of traction as well. We had an interview with Al Jazeera. Hopefully we have a article coming out in a large publication in the next month or so. And so we're excited about those kind of things because it reaches those celebrities as well. And they get to see it on, Al Jazeera with 1 million views or however many hundreds of thousands of views. It's like, okay, cool. Now we can step up. But we do salute the ones who have been present. Like you said, Mos Def has taken part, and we've actually gotten back in contact with him, and he's willing to do more. T.I. came out and spoke at a rally. Killer Mike came out and spoke at a rally. Tone Trump is always heavily involved. So, Imam Omar Suleiman on the, Muslim influencer side of things and the Imam side of things. We've had a lot of support, and support's building, and we feel like we have traction. And so we're just trying to keep the ball rolling.
Right. Yeah. I think, one of the reasons why, I'm from Brooklyn, and I grew up in Brooklyn, and I always knew of Imam Jamil, right? Kind of growing up Muslim. And then when I was going through my mother's things, like there are all these cassette tapes, there are all these of his lectures and things like that. But then also she had recorded several different, so one I found, you mentioned Bosnia, so people can check this out. They want to go to the website. We have a video montage called Legacy. And in that montage, there are two clips related to Imam Jamil that I included. So one was, there was a Bosnia rally in Washington, D.C. that he spoke at, right? And so we have a segment of his whole speech, I think, is in there. And then also there was this show that used to be on television called Like It Is, with Gil Noble, and there was an interview with Gloria Richardson, who just passed. May Allah have mercy on her. An active civil rights member of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, talking about who he was, right? And then there was also a recording of another episode of Like It Is with your mother, Sakrima, and Kathleen Cleaver, right, talking about his case. And this was early 2001, early so 20 some years ago. But I think and so I was so for me, just kind of going through the archive and seeing what my mother was doing, and the idea that in that 20 years ago this was happening, and then we're still, today, it was really compelling for me to think about what is it that we can do, what is it that I can do, what is it we might be encourage people to do to support, because that is, for lack of a better term, bananas.
It is, for sure.
that we would still be in this place today. Okay, let's see if we have any questions from the audience. Oh, so there's a question. So I'm going to open this question to both A'isha and Kairi. The question is, I've heard people say, why protest in a country that is inherently oppressive or anti-Black? What would you say to that?
Sister A'isha, you want to go, or you want?
My response to that is, why not? Why would you let something that is inherently evil and destructive and harms another human being to go on? If we don't stand up to things that are wrong, then what are we? You know what I'm saying? There's that saying that is if a person doesn't stand for something, then they're gonna die on their knees, something like that. It's why, just because a country is this way, why would you not oppose it? Why would you not take a stand and take action? As a Muslim, to me, it's incumbent upon me as a Muslim, and also as a woman, that's what my parents taught me, is to take a stand for justice. If somebody's being oppressed or hurt, do whatever you can to help them. And I think that's each of our responsibilities as human beings. Kairi.
No, I agree. And to add to that, my response is we protest because the country is inherently oppressive and anti-Black. Like that's if it wasn't, then we probably wouldn't, we wouldn't have anything to protest. But that's the reason for the protest. And protest is just defense. It's not even anything offensive in response. It's just they smacked us and we're blocking, like telling them to stop. That's all. And so, that's why you protest. You protest because you're fed up. You protest because you want change. And it's not satisfactory. The way things aren't satisfactory to you. And people who it doesn't affect protest because, that's empathy. That's what good people do. And Muslims protest because the law says, if you see a wrong, you change it with your hands. And if you can't, you change it with your mouth. And if you can't, you hate it in your heart. And that's the weakest form of faith. And so you decide which level you want to fall on that tier list. But those are the reasons I would say we protest.
But and I guess to follow up too, what I guess enables you to continue, right? Because both like in terms of like Jericho, right? Jericho starting in 98, right? And still working to free people, right? In terms of Imam Jamil's case in particular, right? It's been 21 years. And, it can feel, it is this, it's like David and Goliath type of situation, right? So what gives you the motivation, or what are the kind of things that, enable you to, sort of to not give up, right? In terms of, fighting this oppressive anti-Black system.
I don't like the alternative. That's if we give up, then it's saying it's acquiescence. Like, all right, this will work, and this won't work. Like in my case with my father, I'm not cool with where that is, and I'm not cool with, we still getting shot down in the streets by the slave catching patrol. Like, it's ridiculous. So none of these things are acceptable states of being for anyone. And so that's why that's the motivation. And the motivation to continue is slow progress is better than no progress. So we're seeing change, just like with my father's situation, we still have hope because all the doors aren't closed. We still have opportunities. And so there's still hope there until all the doors are closed. And alhamdulillah, Allah hasn't made that the situation. So, we have what we feel like is the best opportunity we've had to date. And that kind of took a lot of patience. So inshallah, this one comes to fruition and we're able to get him home so he could spend the rest of his days on this side of the wall and kind of get some peace. He's a big guy too, and that little bed can't be doing him no favors. So inshallah, we can get him, maybe a king size again. But yeah, no, that's the hope comes from there's still a chance, and the resilience comes from I don't like the alternative. We got to keep fighting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I definitely agree with you. And it's like, there is no other alternative. And that is a driving passion and the determination. You know what I'm saying? It's like, there is no alternative. We have to keep fighting. We have to keep fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And we, like a lot of our, I'll say former political prisoners have come home. I mean, Jalil has come home, and Seth, and Herman, and Jan. And so we have successes. And my hope and my prayers are that we get all of them out, starting with your dad right now, my prayer is that we just get them all out. And like, to me, there is no quitting. There is no quitting. And as we are, and as our people are being released or not, we're having new political prisoners. Like, I wrote this one article about how the children in cages at the borders are like our youngest political prisoners. You know what I'm saying? So unfortunately, the work, it does progress. We do have wins. We are, like, brother said, we are making some progress, but yet we still are fighting. We're still fighting the beast. You know what I'm saying? So it's an ongoing process.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking when I was listening to Kairi speak, I was thinking about, and I'm going to blank on his name right now, but the brother from Move, whose parents were recently released.
Mike Africa.
Yes, Mike Africa. Thank you. Yes, and just that, like, and what does it mean, right, for you to have your parent, right, sort of incarcerated for, so, all these important moments of your life, right, and things are happening that you're being missed out on because of that. But then that moment of, a reunification, right, and so we definitely want to support you, right, both on a kind of on the sort of the political level, but also on the personal level, right? In terms of what that means. We do have a couple questions actually. Let's see. So the first question is, how do I send Imam Jamil a personal letter? And does he have the capacity to read it given his recent eye surgery and surveillance, et cetera?
Yeah, he does. Well, when they they play with his mail, of course, but you can send him a letter. His mailing address is on a separate website from the one we'll be sharing later. It's called, I'll put it in the chat, but it's called whathappenedtorap.com. And that website has all of the information. I see another question was, how do we deal with the guilt and innocence? The first step to that is also visiting this website, getting informed. You can find the confession on this website. You can find all the talking points, the legal missteps, the outright cheating, everything you need to kind of have that conversation. It's not an argument with anybody. Like I don't argue with anybody about his guilt or innocence. I just point them to the information. And then we have the conversation again after they read it. And if it hasn't changed, it hasn't changed, but it's real difficult for it not to change after that. And so, it's a one-on-one kind of situation because, if you run into somebody and you have that conversation, then, changing their mind changes a lot because they'll get active based on feeling bad about what they've carried for these last 21 years. And that's all we need is people who are ready to get active. But that whathappenedtorap.com also at the very bottom has his mailing address. And yeah, he can see now, so he'll be able to read and respond, which he hasn't been able to do for a very long time.
Yeah. And before I want to ask A'isha about letter writing too, real quick, and then we'll get to the actual letter. But when you were speaking about like the denial of the surgery, what was the justification?
Oh, there was no they didn't give us a reason. They just said he's on the list, leave us alone. It was, it was just a part of this hatred that's it's so high up that it just runs down through the city. Like, these people don't even really know who he is, but it's like, we were told we don't like you, and so we're going to treat you like this. And again, that's why it's very important. It was important for us to do things like go to Tucson and let them know, like, there's still people out here who care about him. Some things are not okay. Some things are not all right. And so, that it was just hatred. It ain't have nothing else to do with any, cruel and unusual punishment, all those things. But alhamdulillah, we got it done. We got it done. And I think I saw one about his media availability. They're still doing their best to stop him from speaking to the media. He was able to get an interview off recently because someone sued their way into the prison to interview him. Which is a great step because now someone's interviewed him finally. And so maybe we can start getting other interviews, but he's spoken enough. Because as far as saying, how do we get his voice out there? Just YouTube his name, either of them. And you'll find more and more videos that still speak to exactly what we're going through today. Like, it resonates so well to what we're going through today that it shows you, like, only thing that's really changed is technology. And so, yeah, just go and share those to your pages. It's funny because we actually got in contact with Diddy because he was pushing something, and my father, a speech from way back in the 60s, resonated with what he was trying to push. And so we had everybody comment underneath, like, he's alive and in prison and needs help. And he reached out and was like, I had no idea, but he's still very relevant. Even to, when you look at the movie for Chairman Fred at the beginning, my pop is at the beginning. When you look at the Central Park Fives miniseries, at the beginning, my pop is at the beginning. So it's all these people understand who he is and are paying deliberate homage, but that's nice, but we need them to take it to the next level and start to advocate. But again, their advocacy is just like political advocacy, in that if they don't feel like the fans or the public are gonna support them for putting their neck out there, then it's like, it might be just too big of a risk for them to take. So we have to show them it's worth it.
Okay. And so A'isha, so I'm gonna ask A'isha a final question, then we'll get to the call to action to write that, so for everyone to kind of follow and write this letter. But I know with Jericho, Jericho has a sort of a writing to political prisoners, right? That happens. And I was just wondering, I know I had talked to Brother Abdul-Khabeer once, and he was telling me, when you write people, it's important to know how to write people, because like Kairi was saying, there are all these ways in which the letter may not reach somebody, right? Because
Yeah, it's really important on so many levels. Well, first of all, the reason we write them is because we want them to know we have not forgotten about them, that they are supported, that they are loved, that they do have a support system on the outside. Secondly, the more people that write our political prisoners, our people, the prisons, they watch everything, right? So the more letters they see come in, they know that people are watching. You know what I'm saying? They know that this person has people on the outside that are always writing them, and should, you know, something happen or something, they would not write, whatever, that they're being watched, kind of, you know what I'm saying? That may not in a big way affect them, but it kind of lets people know, you know, hey, this is our people. We're watching, you know,
Right.
as opposed to somebody in prison who never gets a letter. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like a safety thing too, as well. But just like, you know, writing our political prisoners, it depends on what prison they're in and at what level, state or federal. They all have like different roles, but basically, you know, it's a concrete way to just help them, support them, create human interaction for them. Although a lot of our people have a lot of, you know, incoming mail, and they can't respond a lot, but they appreciate every single letter. If you want to keep a relationship going, like, you know, let them know from the beginning, you know, that you'll be able to write, and don't make promises that you can't keep. That's another big one. As far as like what to include, I mean, some will let you include photos. I know you definitely can't do Polaroids, and that was way back, I think, even when I was little. So I don't think it's around anymore, but you can send pictures to some of the prisons. It's usually white paper, white envelopes, no like glitter, colored paper, colored pens, markers and stuff. I mean, they did away with all that. And I think that was like, I think maybe 4 years ago they stopped, 5 years ago, something to do with fentanyl or something on some of the, I don't know. But the to keep it safe, just use white paper, white envelopes. If there's the first time that you're writing somebody, just, you know, keep it brief, introduce yourself, talk about your interests. Some people will talk about their community work and what they're involved with. However, what I like to do is, you know, with Oakland Jericho, anyhow, it's just to advise people, you know, not to get too political at first, just kind of, you know, introduce yourself and, you know, how you've heard about them, and then let them take the lead, you know. And really important is that whatever you write in a letter, make sure it's something that you wouldn't mind, like a cop scene or the FBI or, you know, somebody else, because all of the letters, they are monitored, they are read, and stored. So, you know, just be mindful of what you say.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so let's get to the letter that we want people to do. And so the idea here is for folks who are with us is to literally do it right now. Like, don't take the link and I'm gonna come back to it later. You know, it's very quick, right? So the idea is to do it right now. And yeah, so so we're gonna let Brother Kairi lead us here. He's gonna drop the link, and we're all, you know, should take our, you know, just do it right now. That's our goal.
All right, that'll work. So I will also, I'm gonna drop the link first, and then I'll share my screen so that we can kind of walk through it together. And there we go. All right, share desktop. All right, so I have my little email tab open. So when you go to freeimamjamil.com, this is the screen you'll see. You can actually look at a couple of other things. You see that bottom link will show you some coverage on the Tucson rally if you want to see that. We have the donate button, we have his merchandise, but the first one is the one we're focused on. So you'll click that and it'll open up, and we're literally just copying, well, read it, of course, so you can know what you're sending. But it's essentially just asking that he be moved or transferred from USP Tucson to USP Atlanta, at least while his case is being reviewed. And so up here we have the 2-line, and we'll just copy, come over here to the email, paste. And then we have the subject line, copy, paste. And then we have the entire email, copy, paste, and the only thing you have to change is your name down here if you want to, or you can put a pseudonym or whatever, but you know, I would put my name. I'm gonna just type out my name and hit send.
And send. Okay, I think I got it. Let's see, I copy paste, I got that thing, and send. That, yeah, what did it take? 30 seconds? Not even.
Give or take, give or take.
Not
It says 3 minutes at the top, and I think we beat that for sure.
Right. Let's see. Can we get some confirmation from our attendees if people have sent? Just give us a thumbs up or something. I don't know what you do as an attendee. We'll see. Who has sent? I will do it.
And so, yeah, we do it that way, obviously, again, so to make sure that it's delivered. And we've had responses. Everybody, we've done this a couple of times to different offices, and we actually get responses like, please tell people stop emailing us. We heard you. Please make it stop. And our response is always like, these are individuals sending you these emails. You know that because it's not being blocked. So it's just people telling you they care. I don't know what you want me to do. Right. And so it works for sure. And we've pulled the brakes. I pushed the brakes on a couple of offices because it was getting ridiculous. It was getting ridiculous for them. Like they couldn't even focus on what they needed to be focused on. They were talking about us in the meeting. So that was great. But it was like, all right, mission accomplished there. They know that we're watching them. Okay. These people need to know that we have a very specific ask that we know they can do, and they need to go ahead and do it. It's the right thing.
And I'm looking at that link that you sent us. There's also the option for people to call, right? Yes. As well, to sort of add to call. And then if you want to paper mail, right? Yes. And is there any like difference in terms of that, like in terms of those ways of
they all serve the same purpose at this point. It's twofold. One is letting them know that we're paying attention, and two is irritating them. Like it's really that simple, because every time he's been moved, irritation has played a part. You know, it's played a major, like, please get him away from us. And so that's why we do have some Tucson folks reaching out to the Tucson prison as well, because we want them to be reaching out to these folks, like, get him out of here. And if they're saying get him out of here and we're saying send him to Atlanta, then hopefully they'll listen and not continue to move him further away, because that's been the trend thus far. He went from Georgia to Colorado to Arizona, and so we need them to start shifting him back this way.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean the cruelty of it. It's just, when you think about it sometimes, because again, one of the things that, even what Sister A'isha was saying, the letters that my mother has, right? So when she would, as a student, they would go and perform the letters she have, like, she received letters that were on yellow paper, or there are envelopes that had like designs on them, you know what I mean? And this is like 1972, 1973. And so the idea that, you know what I mean? Like, it's just that, to me, it's just the way the cruelty has sort of like just increased, right? In terms of what happens to people who are being held captive, is really, sort of chilling in many ways, bone chilling, and then wanting to make sure that we, like you say, don't forget folks, right? And that we are doing what we can. For people who attended with us tonight, we will send you an email tomorrow with what do we say we're going to do? Just kind of email tomorrow with the information about writing letters, so you can share it with other people, right? So you can say, hey, here's the link. Here, you can do this yourself. And also the recording to tonight's conversation and things for you to share. Because, this is, like one of the things I was saying when I was trying to encourage people to come, was that, this is a very small act, right? But like you said, it can have huge consequences, right? Like, it's very simple. It's very kind of low risk, right? In terms of copy paste an email, but that can really have huge consequences, right? For Imam Jamil and in political prisons more broadly. So I'm excited that, folks who were here tonight have sent the letters. I see people saying they sent, their letters.
Absolutely.
And we're committed to sort of like, we have our own like email list, in relation to Umi's archive, and people who follow us on different social media platforms, sort of try to get a good number of letters written, right, to kind of help that agitation and that annoyance.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
To free Imam Jamil, right?
I think the more letters that are sent, like just keep sending the letters, sending them. And like Brother Kairi said, it's like they keep saying, make them stop, because they get agitated and they want it to stop. So they will sometimes submit to what you want, like a move. In this case, it's a move. Right. But just keep sending them, and keep writing him. Write them. Just keep writing them. And I just want to backtrack a little bit about what you were saying about how when you're going through your mom's stuff, that the letters that were the elevated color. Yeah, it's because they try to take dehumanization as far as they can. It's like white paper, white envelopes, nothing colorful, nothing happy, nothing. And they try to move our people furthest away from their families as they can.
Right.
To cut that communication as well, and those ties. They make it as difficult as they can. So,
go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, so we can counter that, by making it difficult for them and what they're trying to do as well.
Yeah, I was listening to the activist once, Miriam Kaba, and she was talking about, particularly around that, the letter writing colors in children, right? Like, so children who, who have family members, and you want to, if you're a kid, you want to draw a picture, you want, and the ways that kind, that communication can't happen, right? In that process too. So it really is sort of an overwhelming sort of dehumanization. So let's see. So to close, I guess we'll close out now. I want to, the couple of things I see in the thing. So people have sent it. They sent from all their email accounts. Oh, that's a good idea. I have other email accounts, so I can do that too. I will do that as well. And Gmail lets you schedule emails, right? So so they're saying we could send daily emails, right? Every morning, automatically just be set, so that's also another way to kind of really bombard them and move that in there. And, so we want to encourage people definitely to heed the call to free them all, right? By supporting this letter writing campaign, which I want tonight, and other sort of efforts that were described from Jericho Movement for other political prisons as well. You can learn more, obviously, about Imam Jamil at the website freeimamjamil.com. You can check out some of Umi's stuff about Imam Jamil on umisarchive.com. In the free, we have a collection called Free 'Em All. So some of the information is there. You can see that, and I think some of the videos were interesting. And I was actually really moved, in particular with the Gloria Richardson, sort of, because she has recently passed away, because the significance of who she was and the way that she really outlined his significance, to the movement and then and now, I think was really powerful. And obviously also Jericho, right? JerichoMovement.com. We can get involved, and there's so many ways to get involved, and and we can do small things. We don't have to, Sometimes I think people feel like, oh, who am I, or what can I do, or and it's like, you're a person, you have an email, you can do that. We can support in ways. I also noticed there are ways to also donate, right, to the campaign you have, and there's some merch. So there are lots of ways for folks to.
This is actually the merch. I have it on.
Oh, okay.
So, nice.
I like that. Nice.
And then
profile.
We got hats and those kind of things. So, right. It's dope merch. Like when you get it, you're gonna be like, oh, this is my favorite shirt. Why does it feel this good? So it's because we wanted to make things that people want to wear, as opposed to buy it because they wanted to support and then put it in that little special spot in the closet, right, that's never coming down. Like, no, we want you to get it and be like, oh, this is really, I'm gonna wear this out. Right. And the shirt actually has, I think, like 10 to 12 of the talking points and the facts about the case on the back of it.
Oh,
so
nice.
The shirt and there's a hoodie on there that also has that same design. And so we made him a little clothing line. So so go check that out.
Yeah, so thank you. So I want to thank you, Brother Kairi, A'isha, for joining us tonight. I want to thank all the folks who came out, and the folks who are going to watch this later and write letters. And we're going to, reach out to you to make sure, you've written your letter You sent your letter, and so we can support this effort, and we can, this first step, right? Getting Imam Jamil moved from Tucson to Atlanta so he can get a free trial so he can come home. And so I think that's what I'm just, I want to say thank you to everybody, and good night. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Shukran.
Alaikum salam. Thank you so much.
Thank
We have
you.
all power to the people.
All power to the people.
Right on.